Hello, everybody, and welcome to TeacherCast, your home for professional development. My name is Jeff Bradbury, and welcome to the Tech Educator Podcast. Got a very important question for you on this amazing Valentine's Day. Are you looking to get more organized in your digital classroom? Are you looking for the perfect tool that's going to not only keep your data safe, but also give you the opportunity to save audio and video and collaborate with your students and teachers and colleagues worldwide? My guest today has just the tool for you and is going to share 5 great ways that she's using this amazing tool in her classroom. From the great state of California, I want to welcome Miss Tammy Dunbar. Tammy, welcome to the program. Welcome to the Tech Educator Podcast.
Thank you so much. I am thrilled to be here. And by the way, I am a Mrs. But I'm very excited to come talk about OneNote and Office 365. We are an Office 365 district here in Manteca, California, 75 miles east of San Francisco in the great Central Valley of California. That's where I'm at.
It is so nice to have you. Of course, it was great to get to know you over the summertime. We did this amazing thing called the US Forum, where you basically grabbed 4 or 5 of us and you drug us all throughout Denver. That was a fun time, wasn't it?
That was big fun. Team Purple, Team 8 was great. We followed the clues. It was a great scavenger hunt. We should have won. I'm just saying. I'm not saying it was rigged. I'm just saying we did win. We did win.
Well, the reason why we were in Denver together is because of the Microsoft Innovative Educator program. And today I want to talk a little bit about what the MIE Expert program is, how do you get into it? But then I really want to ask you the question about digital organization. See, recently we had somebody reach out to us on Twitter at TeacherCast and say, I'm trying to find the perfect tool for organizing. And I said, I don't know of anybody better to answer that question than Mrs. Dunbar. Tammy, tell us a little bit about the MIE Expert program.
Okay, well, the MIE Expert program, Microsoft Innovative Educator Expert program, is probably one of the best professional learning networks I've ever been in. I've been in it for 3 years now. And in order to get into it, I think it opens up about in late spring. Nominations. And generally speaking, you have to put in a lesson plan. My lesson plan was on Genius Hour, of course, using Microsoft products. And once you're selected to be on the team, then you have access to this amazing network of educators. I was fortunate enough to be able to go to one of the E2 global conferences where not only did I get to meet US MIE experts, but I got to meet experts from all over the globe. And those connections have been amazing for my students because, for example, this year we reached out to Cohen Timmers from Belgium, one of the MIE fellows, and Cohen did a great project on water, the Why Water project. And there were 9 schools in 8 countries. And we had a 5-week program where we taught each other about water in our areas. And so when you make connections like that and your students get to take part in such projects, then your students are realizing, hey, I can use technology not just for learning in the classroom, but for learning beyond the classroom in future careers. And it kind of opens their eyes to the possibilities. So it's a great program.
Now, I certainly would encourage anybody, even if you're not in a Microsoft school, to try and learn about some of the great things that are happening over in the Microsoft area. Of course, you can find out more information by going over to their website, education.microsoft.com. You can find out all about the MIE program, become an MIE expert, which then leads you to be an MIE trainer or a Skype master teacher. Now, one of the things that we can do here as MIE members, and I think, Tammy, anybody can really dive into this world, is to earn various badges based off of different trainings that you can take on the Microsoft Education products. Could you tell us a little bit about how we can learn more through the education portal?
Oh, there's so many different ways to learn in the education portal. There are courses, as you mentioned, courses that are not just in Microsoft specific products, but also courses in being a 21st century learner and educator, courses in teaching with technology. And they're excellent courses. And yes, you can earn points and badges. If you talk to your district, you might even be able to earn professional development credit for it. But you also, in the coursework, also have Microsoft specific courses that you can take so you can learn how to sway better or mix it up better or take your OneNote to the next level. And then, of course, there are also certifications. So if you take some of those courses, you might want to go out and take an actual test at a testing site so you can earn your Microsoft Certified Educator certification. It's a great place to learn not just about Microsoft products, but about technology in education and how to make it work for our students.
I'll be coming up on my, I believe, 2-year anniversary as an MIE expert this summer. And it's been an amazing experience, not only to be able to reach out and work with great educators, but also have that family and that community to work out. There's, of course, many great things about the MIE community. The best, I would have to say, is their wonderful podcast. We have a great podcast called the MIE Experts Spotlight Series podcast, where we bring on great educators, not just from the United States of America, but across the world, to talk about how they're getting their digital classrooms organized and in order using great Microsoft products. Check that out today. That is hosted over on TeacherCast at teachercast.net/MIE Spotlight. And of course, you can subscribe to that over on iTunes and on YouTube. Now, Tammy, I want to get down to the topic today, which is keeping yourself digitally organized. I mean, recently I was talking to a teacher who's retiring, and she was asking me a little bit about ways to take her information out of the district, right? We don't live in a world anymore where there's a physical filing cabinet that we can just put in our car and run away with. We're looking at digital organization. And when it comes to the Office 365 products, we are looking at OneNote. I'm going to ask you a silly question here. I hope you're ready for it. Do you use OneNote?
Yes, I do. And I use it on both platforms. I don't know if your retiring teacher has thought about it, but of course, we're an Office 365 district, so I have my Office 365 account through my district. Once I retire, I won't have access to the files there in my OneDrive. So I also have a personal OneDrive where I port over the things that I want to keep, my files.
Well, we're certainly going to talk about that as far as how do you take this information with you. Several great online companies, not to be named on this podcast, have ways of taking your school files with you when you leave, when you graduate as a senior, all those different things. I definitely want to ask you about that. But first of all, let's just talk a little bit about the general overview here. If you were to answer the question, OneNote is, and then fill in the blank, I know we could do this all day, but what is the general answer of Microsoft OneNote is?
The best way to organize an incredible array of information. And also the best way to organize it, whether you're using a computer or whether you're using, an iPhone or any kind of phone. You were asking me earlier about my top 5 ways, and I do a lot of speaking at conferences and I travel a lot. So I have a OneNote specifically for all the conferences that I attend. And so when I get an email with a confirmation of registration, I print it into my OneNote. If I get my airline reservations, I print the QR code into my OneNote. When I get my hotel reservations, everything is in my OneNote. So when I travel, I've got all my information right here in my little iPhone OneNote. So that's the first thing. That's number 1, is keeping yourself organized when you travel and when you go to educational conferences.
I love using OneNote on my mobile device for this reason. It takes audio. And people sometimes ask me, what is the best way to record a podcast with your classroom or with, anything like that? And my answer is usually pick up OneNote and start to talk into it. That way there is no such thing as syncing or chords. It just lives in your OneNote, which is fantastic.
No, and I love that. The other thing I like about a OneNote is when you use it in conjunction with Office Lens. For example, if there's a document that you want to get into your OneNote, you simply take a picture of it with Office Lens, send it to OneNote. It's just the easiest way to be organized.
And
there's my OneNote with all my conference stuff, all my tab for each conferences and such. Super easy, super organized.
Now, let's talk a little bit here about some of the things that a new OneNote person can use. And maybe we can, as the show goes through here, maybe we can get a little bit more, expert level and kind of peel the onion off here. We are live. This is the Tech Educator Podcast. It is Tuesday at 8 o'clock Eastern. We are live on TeacherCast.tv. Want to welcome, Joe, Peggy, everybody here who's on the podcast. Please be working on your questions. We want to ask Tammy everything that we certainly can. And of course, if you're listening to this show after we've recorded it, you can of course reach out to us on Twitter at TeacherCast or leave us a voice message at teachercast.net/voicemail. We would love to hear from you. Now, let's talk a little bit about getting into OneNote, because I'm going to be honest with you here, and I've seen some people in the chat room going, I was one of those guys that used and still uses, quote, the other product out there. I'm not going to talk about the green elephant in the room, but the other product. Now, getting into OneNote, it's kind of scary because it's a big, huge environment that you can do a lot with. You can put things in and move it around, and you got... Talk to us a little bit about getting into OneNote for the first time.
For the first time? Well, you've got to take it in little bites. If you just think of it as a digital binder, that's really the easiest way. When I teach other teachers how to use it, that's what I tell them. Think of a binder, and the binder inside of it has those wonderful tabs that organize each of your sections. And behind each tab, you have a lot of pages. That's how OneNote is organized. And when you start thinking about it like that, then you start saying, oh, well, gee, that's kind of nice. Well, what about all these worksheets? You can print them from Word into OneNote. Now you've got all those worksheets behind one tab, so that's the first way I go about it. And then once they're comfortable with just simple things, then you start saying, well, that YouTube video that you've been using as an into for this lesson, you can simply embed it into your OneNote. So when you go to the lesson next time, there's the video, there's the worksheet, there's the assessment. So that's, it's baby steps, but once teachers get that confidence in working with OneNote, then they start diving in with all the amazing things that it can do.
And that's pretty much my story. I went into OneNote famously now kicking and screaming, and I basically said to people who were even on the show, I said, prove it to me, right? Like, I have all of my stuff over here. Prove to me that this is the better option or even another option. And I got to tell you, and I'll be honest about this, I've kind of fallen in love with it because of all the different things that it can do. I started to actually, keep my podcasts and stuff organized in OneNote just to kind of get myself to force myself to start to use the app just to kind of see what it's all about. And I got to tell you, it's not that it's easier or it's harder. It's just a different way of thinking about things. And I find that some things that I use digitally are so much easier in OneNote because of the visual way that it looks. And I got to tell you, it's a much faster online experience when you're using your iPhones.
Oh, it's really incredible when you use iPhones. Of course, the desktop version has a lot more muscle to it. You could do a lot more with it. But yeah, with the iPhone, easy to add, take a picture, add it in and such. But I was trying to think. You made me think of something there in the OneNote. What was it you were just mentioning?
How wonderful you are.
Memory. Say again?
I said I was mentioning how wonderful you are.
Oh, well, I could talk about that forever. You're wonderful too, but it's Valentine's Day. So.
Oh.
Yay, Jeff.
And so many people right there.
OneNote. I really do heart OneNote. Second thing, because we were asking for a top 5. Second thing for organization is that you may have a principal or an administrator who wants to see your lesson plans every week. And I don't know about you, but it's difficult for me. I'm out here in the back 40 at my school. I'm in my classroom now. And I'm in the back 40, and it's difficult to get to a printer and print things out for him. So what I do is I shared a OneNote with my principal, and I digitally print my lesson plans into a fresh page every week. And so if he wants to see what my lesson plans are for that week, he just simply has to open up my digital binder and take a look, and he knows exactly what I'm doing. So it's incredibly convenient, and it saves time and paper.
All right, so if we're looking at 5 things that we can do with OneNote right away, okay, we've talked about organizing, we've talked about putting things in it. Let's get down to some of the classroom stuff. If we were looking at the second biggest thing that we can do here, could you give me an example of how OneNote is being used in your classroom or to maybe provide a lesson? Not just as a data storage spot, but how are you teaching with OneNote?
Perfect. So, and this is also good when you have a substitute teacher, because if you've trained your students to go into your OneNote to get the lesson for the day, then it's pretty simple. You can do the lessons from home, put it into the OneNote, and then your students just open it up and do it, and you don't have to worry about making subplans, which is a plus. But one of the ways that we've used recently, comes to mind, is I gave my students an assignment. We were studying earthquakes, and I wanted them to create a meme for earthquake safety. And so what they had to do, it was all in the OneNote. And the OneNote, I brought a video in that showed how to create a meme on a PowerPoint, and then it showed them how to save it as a JPEG. Then I had a document that they could actually read with the written instructions, because some students, and this is a way I can differentiate with OneNote, some students do better when they see it visually. Other students do it better when they can read it. So I had both of those in the OneNote page. And then I had the actual assignment. Here's what you need to do. You need to create the slide. It needs to have impact font, top and bottom. It needs to talk about some kind of earthquake safety. And then you save your slide as a JPEG. And then I want you to either print it or attach it onto the collaborative area of our OneNote. So what it does basically for the students is, not only are we covering language arts standards, but we're also teaching them how technology can work. And we're teaching them, how to use PowerPoint, which, as we know, Microsoft Office tools are one of the third skills that employers look for after loyalty and trustworthiness. So having students be comfortable with manipulating PowerPoint files, knowing you can save it not just as a PowerPoint, but as other files, and then how to bring that into the OneNote is really cool. And then if it's in the collaborative area, everyone gets to look at everyone else's work, which is nice. And if they want to, publish it in their own area, so just I can see it, that's fine. But that's one of the ways that we put lessons into the OneNote. So it's not me in the front like a Charlie Brown grown up, because that gets boring. It's better that they can get in sometimes and just dive right in.
Talking today to MIE expert Tammy Dunbar. Of course, you can find her over on Twitter at Tammy Dunbar. And Tammy, talking a little bit about some of the things that you can do with OneNote. I want to hit the third thing here, and that's backing up those important documents. Now, that's different than data storage, I think. It's February. We're looking at tax season. I'm assuming that people are using applications like OneNote to take all your receipts, your tax papers, all of that stuff, and digitally organize it, so that way they don't have to keep boxes and boxes and boxes of stuff in there. What other things can we use OneNote for in a practical sense? Even just around the classroom, maybe around the house, just to kind of give us that peace of mind that everything that we have is safe.
Well, as a teacher, the thing I want safe are my lessons. So, but another thing we might consider keeping safe are all the collaborative efforts that we do with our intermediate team or with our teachers. Most schools require that teachers come together and meet and collaborate. And so my intermediate group, I teach fifth grade. So the fourth and fifth grade teachers here at my school, all 5 of us have a OneNote. And when we have a great lesson, we stick it in there and we share it, so everyone's got access to that lesson. And we know that next year we can go in and do that lesson again. And we've given everyone editing rights, so that if someone teaches the lesson and says, oh, I just had this great insight, I changed this one thing and it worked better, they can tweak that and then tweak it in the OneNote, and then there we are, ready for the next time. So organizing lesson plans, obviously, and I love that you mentioned taxes, because that brought me back to thinking about Microsoft Lens. When you're out in a restaurant, right? Take a picture of the receipt or any receipts, get the roof fixed, right? Get something fixed, and just put that into your OneNote so you've got it for next time. That also, by the way, works for travel. When I travel and I have to keep all my records for traveling, meals and taxis and those kinds of things, I just take pictures of it and put it in my travel OneNote.
Now, one of the things as a tech coach that I get from teachers is I hear this word, and many people, they kind of think it's a dirty word, but I kind of encourage the use of the word. It's I'm going to say this quietly, print. And I try to say, printing is awesome. Printing is wonderful, but there's a place for that. But I like to say, instead of using the word print, let's use the word publish. Now, okay. I would assume that we can use OneNote because it has this online function that there's a website address to it. You can give that out. one would assume that a student could make a website type project or website type resource for themselves or even for your classroom using OneNote.
Yeah, a student could use a resource, definitely. The first year that we got OneNote, I'm at a Title I school, and yearbooks are expensive. So what my students did to create a resource is they wanted to have a digital yearbook. And so
Yeah.
every student in my class, we created the OneNote, they got their pages, and everybody on their page put, here's my best work from the year. Here's some pictures of my friends, and here's some cool things that we took around school. And so we created this wonderful resource. So they've always got this digital binder, and print is wonderful if you can afford it, but there's something nice about having a yearbook that is totally customized for your class. So that's a memory that's going to last forever.
We have a couple questions coming in on our chat box over on TeacherCast.tv. Peggy's asking about Office Lens. Is that just a digital, not digital tool, but is that just a mobile tool, or is there a version of that available on a desktop, laptop device?
Yeah, my understanding is it's just a mobile tool for right now. We've been talking, Jeff and I are both MIE experts, and we've been saying, well, gee, it'd be really nice if with my, my Surface Pro or some other device that I could take a picture and bring it in that way. And they haven't done that yet. But so yes, it's just right now a mobile device, a mobile app.
But a free app nonetheless.
Teacher's favorite F word. Free.
Very, very cool. So we're looking at the 5 ways of using OneNote. Of course, we're talking organizing. Number 2, we're talking about using it in class lessons. We're talking about using it in websites. We're talking about storing important documents both at home and in the classroom. Let's talk about the 5th thing. What is one thing that you might use OneNote for that maybe nobody else would think about?
Well, one of the big things right now, and a lot of people haven't heard about it, hopefully they're starting to if they're listening, is when you use OneNote Classroom, is that wonderful learning tools. Have you heard about that one, Jeff?
I wanted to bring up the whole idea of OneNote class notebooks and classrooms and all that stuff. Tell us a little bit about it.
So OneNote Classroom is really cool because it's still a shared binder, but it's this wonderful template where a teacher can create a binder for his or her class. And there are 3 distinct areas. One is a collaborative area where students can add in content. Anybody can add it in. Of course, anyone can subtract. So you have to teach some manners there. You have a content area where teachers can load up information and students can read that and they can copy it into their personal section, which is the 3rd section, or they can just look at it. And then lastly, students have their own section. So when a student logs into a classroom OneNote, he or she only sees 3 sections: collaborative, content, and his or her own section. So they can't look at other students' work. So there is some privacy there, which is nice. And in classroom, what's cool is if I have an assignment I want to give out to students, I simply do a little drop down, I hit distribute, and it will automatically put it in all their personal folders so that they can get right to work. They don't have to worry about they don't have to copy it over from the content area. They don't have to worry about students messing with it on the collaborative area. It's right there on their area. And then the add-in I was alluding to earlier in Classroom OneNote is learning tools, which has become a powerful tool for helping students with dyslexia, dysgraphia improve fluency.
Talking today to MIE expert Tammy Dunbar, and you can find out all the great things that's happening in her neck of the woods over on her website, Teacher Geek is Chic. Am I saying that right? .com?
You are indeed, with a little attitude.
Lots of great stuff. I see you coming to Massachusetts, doing some California things, doing some ISTE stuff coming up. Lots of great stuff over there. Now, again, we're live over here on TeacherCast.tv, where we have a really, really nice live audience, and we have some people asking some questions here, because believe it or not everybody teaches in a Office 365 environment. What are some I don't want to say the word advantages. Let's not do that game. But what are some things that maybe you can do in Office that you can't do in a Google Apps environment? I want to say the right words here, right, Tammy? But I don't want to say one's better than the other. But what are some of the equivalents? Like, you can use OneNote for this, but the Google version of that might be this.
Well, I think one of the advantages for me with OneNote is it's kind of WYSIWYG. What you see is what you get. So you can actually manipulate items on the page where it looks exactly how you want it to look. You can, put YouTube video in there, any kind of video. So it lives there on the page. I don't have to worry about, going out and finding it. I think really the advantage is all the muscle that's in it, and the length and the strength of what I can get out of it. Plus, it looks the way I want it to look.
We have a couple more questions coming in on the chat box. Thank you guys so much. I see Todd just joined us, a fantastic MIE. When it comes to OneNote, and I do want to do a little comparison shopping here, because I know if you're using Evernote, you can have up to a 200 megabyte Evernote. Do you know what the maximum, or what is the limit to a OneNote document or a notebook? I'm not sure what the equivalent on that is, but is there a limit to how much you can put on one canvas?
Yeah, there's a limit on OneNote. I don't know the specific number, but I do know that when I was going through my Liberating Genius lessons, that you can read about on a Microsoft blog, and I had a 3-part lessons that when we tried to upload the OneNote binder, they were like, oh my God, this is huge. So we actually broke it up into 3 binders, which is very easy to do with OneNote, because you can just copy a section over to a new notebook and not a problem. I'm sorry, I don't know the exact number, but I know there is a limit.
And I'm just thinking out loud here, but I guess it would be easier to add a lot of information on a OneNote because you're using the power of OneDrive, whereas as Evernote and other like things, you're putting all the content in that particular app or note or whatever. But I mean, if you wanted to do a full 2-hour-long movie, you would put that into OneNote, and then is it adding or inserting, or do they officially call it embedding into a OneNote?
I think it's officially embedding, because once a student downloads that and takes it home, if they don't have internet, they can still play it. So it would have to be embedding.
Now, Todd, one of our famous and awesome MIEs here, I asked him on the chat, what does he like to do with OneNote? And
Todd.
he says he loves making personalized videos for homebound students.
Ooh, nice.
And I love that answer, because that really does take things to the next level, where you can create it on your phone, use an app to edit, upload it into OneDrive, and then again, as we were saying, take that link, put it into OneNote. When you're looking at the OneNote app, clearly we're looking at it on an iPad screen or an iPhone screen, or a smaller screen, like a Surface screen. Is it easy to move or manipulate things around? Do you feel that OneNote does a great job at resizing things to that mobile space?
Yeah, I think it does an excellent job. And I love that Todd mentioned about doing personalized content for students. One of the tricks that I've been using is using one of the new Microsoft widgets called Snip, which you can find if you just Bing Microsoft Snip and download it. Not the snipping tool, it's actually Snip. So this little widget, what I use it for is you can choose the second function, which is a whiteboard function, and it will record everything that you're digitally inking on the whiteboard, plus it records your voice. So what I've done is whenever I give quick lectures in my class on math concepts, double-digit multiplication, distributive property, I will record that short lecture on the whiteboard, and you can hear the kids responding to me. And then when I'm done in Snip, it has a function where you can send it to OneNote, and I put it in the student's OneNote so that they can go in the content area, and they can say, oh my gosh, how do you do double-digit multiplication again? And I can just say, go look in the OneNote.
Mm-hmm. One of the things that we spoke about earlier is taking your content or exporting your content. Now, I don't know this as well as I should on the Microsoft OneDrive setup, because I've never needed to use it. But in Google, you've got your content that you own, that you're the owner of, and when you leave your school or you graduate, your school account is still the owner, and you have to export that. I'm assuming that on the Office 365, there's something similar, correct?
Yeah, it's similar, because if you've got an Office 365 account through your district, then all of that content that's on there, once you leave and your email is gone, it goes as well. And that's why I say it's so easy to port information from an Office 365, a district OneNote, and just send it over to a personal OneNote. I will often save it in both places if it's something I want to keep. And not that I'm at all thinking of leaving my district. I love Manteca Unified, rock on Manteca, but it's just another good way to back up. I mean, I think I back up my information 3 or 4 different ways, burned once, shame on me, burned twice or whatever.
Right.
I'm not going to have it happen again.
I totally buy into that. I in the last year, OneNote has come up with an export tool to take stuff out and put it into Evernote, and Evernote has come up with a tool to take stuff out of it and put it into OneNote. I think I'm saying that the right way. And so right now I've got all of my stuff backed up in both places. And although this is my plea to say, can you sync that somehow? I know that'll never, ever happen. So I know, like I said, some of my podcasting stuff I use in OneNote. My personal stuff, I kind of go back and forth on depending on what it is. But I love the fact that it takes everything. And I love the fact that you can access your notebooks in OneDrive. I also love the fact that in OneNote, how you only can choose to see the notebooks on the left side that you want to see. If you have 100 notebooks, you might only want to see 3, whereas in Evernote, you are stuck seeing the entire 100 notebooks that you have. So there's advantages to doing all of these things. I got to ask you, and I'm going to put you on the spot here. If there was one feature request, and I know that you know the people that make OneNote out there, but if there was one feature request, what would it be?
Oh, that I would want OneNote to have?
Yeah.
And it's a silly request. It's already in the app, and my students love that silly rainbow pen. They use it a lot. We love digital inking, and sometimes to have a kid draw on rainbow pen is fun, but it's only available in the app. It's not available on the desktop version, and our district uses the desktop version. As far as organization, they've already come through with the requests that I've had. We wanted to be able to embed video. You can do that. We wanted to be able to bring in a Sway or a Microsoft Form. We could do that. So, it's sound files, audio file. It just, the team, as you said, I do know some of the people on the team. They're extremely responsive. That's another big advantage. We were talking earlier about being a Microsoft Innovative Educator expert. That's one of the advantages, is that not only do we get to give them feedback, they listen and then they make it work for us. I mean, it's this really wonderful symbiotic relationship where they want their product to be better. We want their product to be better, and they make it better because they listen to us. And, that's one of the joys of working with the OneNote team. The things that we've already been asking for in the last couple of years, they've given to us.
I've had the privilege of working closely with the OneNote team for, I think, almost 3 or 4 years now. And I used to think that I was special because when somebody would come to a TeacherCast video that we did, I would take their comments, forward it to my friends on the team, and then they would respond to I felt really neat that I was kind of that conduit between a person asking a question and then getting help. And then I realized, no, I'm not that special. These are really amazing people that go out of their way to help their customers.
Well, you are special, but yes, they do.
Well, that's just because I have a wonderful purple hat, which I should have had with me on this show today, but it's in the car.
It's awesome.
But yeah, and I say this about Microsoft. I say this about the other companies that are out there. All you have to do is just ask. And as a tech coach, I say this constantly to my teachers. If you're in an app, and it doesn't matter if it's a Word doc or a Google doc, and you see a little question mark that says survey, take the survey.
Well, or feedback, because Microsoft often will have a drop down that says feedback, and do it because they read it. They listen to you, and out of the blue, they'll email you. Talk to them. Don't be afraid. They want to hear from you. And oftentimes they'll take it into account, and there are probably 10 other teachers asking for the same thing.
Right. And of course, the one way that you can definitely get a hold of them is on Twitter. Microsoft Education does have a new Twitter address out there. It is now officially at Microsoft EDU. They took the underscore out, which is fantastic. So you can certainly find them on Twitter at Microsoft EDU and at OneNote EDU. And of course, I understand, Tammy, that there's still an amazing Twitter chat that happens a couple times a month, right?
Yes. Matter of fact, I was one of the guests on the January one that we had. And so it's called OneNote Q. I believe it's hashtag. Did I do that right? OneNote Q. And I think that I'll have to look at the date. Do you have it, Jeff? But I think it's already been for February, hasn't it?
Absolutely. If I go over to teachercast.net/MIE Spotlight and check out their fantastic podcast, you will see two buttons down here that say mark your calendars for the next tweet meets. They use the hashtags MSFTEDUchat and at OneNoteEDUchat. And of course, when you click on those buttons, it takes you to the actual hashtags on twitter.com where you can see all the great things and the conversations that happen. And Tammy, I understand that recently they had a fantastic moderator.
Oh, aren't you kind? Yeah, in January, I was one of the moderators, and we had a blast because we were talking about all the magical things that you can do with OneNote and how you can actually kind of dazzle your administrators with it as well. Because sometimes we find administrators are a little reluctant to go digital. They like everything, in hard binders. But when you show them how amazingly easy it is to be organized and how much paper and time, let's face it, it saves. For example, and I don't know if I've already done 5. If I have, this is 6. And we do a lot of IEPs. I'm sure there are a lot of teachers out there that have to sit in on individual education plans. And what we found was that we did them after school when the office was closed. We couldn't get to a copy machine. We couldn't get to a printer. Hello, we got a OneNote. So in the OneNote, we have all the forms we need. We have digital inking so the parents can sign the form. We can email it right from OneNote to the parents, to the principal, to anyone else who needs it. And then on those days when it's difficult for the team to get together, we have individual pages for specific students where we can print their scores from SRI, Scholastic Reading Inventory, or we can print their scores from proficiencies, and we can talk about everything in there in one place. So we can go into the OneNote, take a look at it. The team can have a conversation and go from there. I guess it goes back to organization and just making life easier. If you can save teachers and administrators time, we're on board.
It's funny that you say that because that is essentially the motto that I bring into my school district as their tech coach is let me take 10 clicks and turn it into 5. And
right.
That's kind of what I try to, if I can help one teacher get faster every single day, that's awesome. Now, we do have a few more questions coming up here, and please keep the chat going over here on TeacherCast.tv. Again, we are live on TeacherCast.tv every single Tuesday night at 8 o'clock. And if I haven't said so, Tammy, happy Valentine's Day. Now, Joe brings up a great question, one that many have here, and he says, recently his school has adopted O365 and G Suite at the same time. Now, he doesn't go into say which apps he's using or the most important question, where his email is coming from. And I think that's always the key here. He says, I don't have any experience using 365 for teaching, but is it possible to integrate both? Or would that end up being an organizational nightmare? Now, my school district recently kind of was both. We were using O365 as we migrated to Gmail. It's tough, right? It's tough to say we're going to do a Google Slides thing over here, but now we're going to work on Sway. Do you have any advice or any experience working with school districts that say we want the best of both worlds because you can't make a PowerPoint and integrate a Google Doc?
No, I appreciate a school district giving teachers choice like that, because when we went one-to-one, we went PC and Microsoft Office 365. So all of us had to learn it, and it's nice to have the choice, but you're right. It would be very difficult to integrate. So I would assume what the district wants, because email is email, right? So I'm assuming the district would have one specific email address where everybody gets their email. Don't know if it's going to be through your G or through your Office 365, but if you've got one teacher that loves the Google, I said the G word, sorry. If you have one teacher that likes that, that's great. I don't know that there's really, you can integrate, I suppose. You can download a Google Slides and you can bring it into a PowerPoint and vice versa. I've been working with Microsoft since I can remember. My husband and I bought a computer in 1986. It was an AT&T 6300, with an amber print instead of a green print on the black background. But we've been using Microsoft products from the beginning because we're PC based. And so I'm super comfortable with the Microsoft products. I also appreciate you and I were talking, Jeff, about products from the fruit company. And, I appreciate that too. And I have one of those devices. It works really great for when I'm making movies. So,
Well,
the right tool for the right job.
right. I mean, I'm the first to say that the best Chromebook on the market is a MacBook Air. And that's just how I believe in things. And the other couple weeks ago, I was sitting down with one of our administrators, and he happened to say, your slide presentations look amazing. How do they look so good? And I said, let me give you a secret to my success. And he says, what? I said, I use PowerPoint templates. Why not, right? Why not use that stuff? And recently with TeacherCast, I've been getting into making silent screencasts versus sitting here doing like hi guys, today we're going to, and I do everything in Keynote, and then I save those as images and I pop those into Google Slides, right? Like there's a lot of different things that we can do here for all of this stuff. I think the easiest thing is to figure out what with your school district, where are you going to be storing stuff? Because I don't know too much about Joe's situation here, but I would imagine if your school is using Google Drive and OneDrive, that's going to get wacky and that's going to get nuts. I mean, for a while there, our school district was O365 everything, and then we were Google everything plus calendar Outlook over here, and then we just made the switch over here because it was getting too confusing of, you're in a Google Doc, you want to email something out, but you're not using Gmail, so you don't have all those email features to it.
Right. So, that's going to confuse your students as well.
That's going to confuse a lot of things. And, you don't want to be having some music and movies and docs over here and some over here. I would hope that anybody that's in that situation, their tech director has a good idea and a good direction of, we're going to put this stuff here, we're going to put this stuff here. And, clearly what we're not saying yet is professional development is the key.
Oh, always is the key. It's the huge part of the key. I mean, you can't expect teachers to do their best if they don't know how to use the equipment. And of course, one of the hints and tips I give to teachers when you're using technology is don't be afraid.
Right.
Don't be afraid to try something. Don't be afraid if it doesn't work. So many teachers that I work with say, oh, I can't possibly do that until I know exactly how it works, and then I can teach it. And it's like, no. Students need to see that struggle. They need to see you trying to make the sound work for the third time. And it's okay if that happens, because they're going to see you working through critically thinking and solving the problem. And they're going to say, my teacher wasn't afraid to learn. I shouldn't be afraid to learn. I shouldn't be afraid to fail because it's just going to teach me something. So we got to be comfortable showing students that, sometimes we make mistakes and it's okay as long as we learn from them.
Now, Tammy, we spent almost an hour here talking about all the great stuff about being an MIE expert. We talked about ISTE. We talked about all the OneNote stuff. I hope everybody out there listening has gotten something out of this show. I, however, have one question that I really want to ask you, and I'm putting you on the spot right now, and I want you to tell a story to everybody.
Okay.
Who is Flopsy?
Flopsy. I love Flopsy. Flopsy is the MIE, and I'm moving because I have a Flopsy here. Flopsy is the MIE mascot. Flopsy is an adorable llama. And my Flopsy, if we can get Flopsy up there. There's Flopsy. Can you see her?
Yes, we can.
Flopsy is wearing her little OneNote cape because she is mighty in OneNote. But Flopsy is just our mascot. Flopsy comes around with us and goes to events. And we matter of fact, when Jeff and I were in Denver and we were doing the hunt and trampsing all around Denver, we had Flopsy with us, and a lot of our pictures had to have Flopsy in them, right?
We got into a taxi cab in Denver with Flopsy, I believe.
We did. We carried Flopsy everywhere, and Flopsy traveled back home with me, and now Flopsy's in my classroom watching over my students and me.
That is absolutely fantastic. Tammy, I want to say thank you so much for all your time tonight. I know it's Valentine's Day, so I want to wrap up just a little bit early and allow you to get back to your family here. But one last kind of wrap up here. Tell us why Microsoft OneNote is awesome.
Microsoft OneNote is awesome because it's easy to use. It saves you time. It helps you become an organized person, not just a teacher, but an organized person. It helps you communicate in a better way with your grade level, with your administrators, and most important, it helps you with your students because your students have this amazing place to keep all of their work and to get their assignments and to collaborate and to communicate and to use those critical thinking skills and to be creative. Those are the 4 C's, and they're all wrapped up in that beautiful OneNote that just is amazing for everyone in education.
Why are the Microsoft Innovative Educators awesome?
Well, as I mentioned earlier, it truly is the best professional learning community I have ever in my entire educational career been a part of, because every single person in this community wants to be there, wants to make a difference in his or her students' lives, and is actively seeking partnerships and collaborations and more opportunities to bring new lessons and new ideas into their classroom so their students can find success. If I didn't have this community, I would be here all on my own. I mean, I have people in my district, of course, but to have that kind of access to the minds of these people that are global, MIE experts are global, gives not just me, but my students a perspective on the world that we would not have the opportunity to have otherwise. So I am grateful to Microsoft and to the MIE expert program because it's made me a better teacher.
And I think most importantly, before I let you go here, and this one might let you run away rather than just leave here, but why is Todd Beard awesome?
Todd Beard. Oh my God. How many reasons can I list why Todd Beard is awesome? Todd Beard is incredibly supportive of all the teachers in the MIE expert program. Plus, he is the most creative, inventive, ingenious educator I've ever had the pleasure of working with. He's also very fun to hang out with. We hung out at Q last year and we had a blast. And he does this amazing thing. You have to look up Ribbon Man. You've seen Ribbon Man, Jeff, right? Todd takes all those little ribbons that we get at conferences, and first he made a cape, and now he's working on making an entire suit. And I mean, anyone who has that kind of creativity and energy and enthusiasm, oh my gosh, we could move mountains. I love Todd Beard.
Very, very cool. One more time, check out all the great stuff that Tammy's doing on her website. You can, of course, find her on Twitter at Tammy Dunbar. And Tammy, one more time for us, what was that website address?
Website is teachergeekischic.com, and I'm on the Twitters at Tammy Dunbar. I'm also on the Facebook, as my mother calls it. But don't forget, keep tuning in here to TeacherCast because Jeff has got an amazing back catalog of podcasts and information and blogs, and he has some creative ideas in there. So I would tune in next Tuesday. I'll be there. Will you?
And of course, you can check out all the great Microsoft podcasts that we have over on teachercast.net/MIE Spotlight and subscribe over at teachercast.net/MIE Audio and MIE Video for all your Microsoft Innovative Educator podcasting needs. My name is Jeff Bradbury. This is the Tech Educator Podcast live on teachercast.tv every single Tuesday night at 8 o'clock. Until next time, keep up the great work in your classroom and continue sharing your passions with your students.